Okay guys, first of all, I measured out 6 tablespoons of butter and cut it up. And this is 3/4 a cup of my home rendered lard. These have been in the freezer, so they're good and chilled. And now we'll start with, pie crust is really nothing but some sort of a fat, flour, and water. So simple. But I've flopped many of them. So we're going to go with 2.5 cups of flour. And a carefully measured teaspoon of salt. Ha! We all know better than that. And I'm just going to take my whisk here and get that salt well incorporated into the flour. Now, I have made pie crust so many different ways. I've worked it in with my hands, which may happen, and I have this, what is that? Good grief. Cuts in your pie crust, pastry knife thing. So, I'm just going to add the butter and the lard. And I can tell you this much, I am not one of those awesome pie crust makers. It is chill. Be right back. I'm not one of those really awesome pie crust makers that makes it turns out perfect every time. I wish I was, but I'm not. And you know me, as long as it's edible, it's okay. Sometimes even if it's not edible. Alright, I'm going to put that all in there. And then I'm just going to start working it in. And you want it to be, you work it till it's all incorporated, till it's kind of crumbly. The reason you want your fats to be cold is it does make for a flakier pie crust. I have made pies with shortening, all butter, all lard, but something about butter and lard just seems to be the best combination. And, there's nothing better than a lard pie crust. The flavor and the texture is just unbelievable in my opinion. Just the good old-fashioned. Did I ever finish explaining why you want it cold? It helps make it flakier. Oh, I even made pie crust using vegetable oil many years ago. And it was very easy, no fail, but it's just not the same. It wasn't flaky. And I don't know, this may not turn out to be flaky either. I'm not sure what we're going to have. It's always a mystery around here when I make something. And if it's a flop, I won't be gifting it. And if it turns out good, they'll get it. You got to kind of secretly hope it turns out a flop, because then it'll stay here at home. But I really like our renters. They're good. They're a good family. I'm going to keep cutting this in, and I'll be right back. Shouldn't take much longer, but I'm just babbling. Okay, guys, I've got it worked in here, and it's just kind of crumbly. Now we're going to add ice water. Again, notice how I'm doing everything cold. Ice water you add just a tablespoon at a time. And the idea, and usually I start out with maybe 3 or 4, just to get started. And then after that, I'll just be putting in a tablespoon at a time. The trick to pie crust, and I've not mastered it, is you don't want to overwork it. So what's overworking your pie crust? I haven't figured it out, but I'll tell you what, I've had some amazing pie crust made by ladies that, of course, they make it all from scratch. And it's flaky every time. I cannot say that's mine. So I'm going to continue adding a tablespoon at a time until, and I'm pretty close, because you want it to where it starts to come together. And quite honestly, I got some dry on the bottom. I might almost be there. Maybe one more tablespoon. Doesn't take a whole lot of water, guys. Okay, I think I'm there, and I don't know if it's going to come up on the camera or not, but you can see little chunks of butter and lard in here, and that's what you want. That's what makes a flaky pie crust. Okay, next what you do is you shape it into 2 balls of dough. Divide it in half and refrigerate it. Wrap it in saran wrap. I don't use saran wrap. I use this stuff. Love it. Wrap it in saran wrap and chill it for 2 hours in the refrigerator. You want it good and cold when you get ready to work it. Of course I didn't count, but I think I had 6 tablespoons of water that I added. Okay guys, I'll get it wrapped up, be right back. Okay guys, here's the dough wrapped up. It's gonna go in the freezer for 30 minutes. This is enough for 2 pie crusts. You can either make 1 single crust or 2 separate pies. Since I'm making coconut cream, you need to make it's just a 1 crust pie. All right, guys, I got the chilled pie dough. I have an aluminum pan here, or whatever that, foil pan, that, of course, I've washed it because I'm OCD about that. It's supposedly 10-inch. They're never as big as they say they are. And then just one of my 9-inch pie plates. And I've sprinkled a little bit of flour onto my makeshift pastry cloth here. And I've apparently wrapped this very well because I can't get it open. Good grief. That's why I like this cling, because it do cling. It clings to just about everything. And we're just going to roll out the pie crust. Maybe you can see the flecks of butter a little bit better. Yeah. I'm going to get this rolled out and I'll be back. Okay guys, this pie crust kind of flopped. So obviously, now you know I am not a professional. I had to piece it together. Hopefully I can show you, and that's why it's in the glass one. I was kind of embarrassed to give it as a gift. I hope the other one turns out better, because, well, maybe not. Then we'll be eating pie. Anyway, I'm going to get started on the second. Well now, this one's even worse. So, remember guys, I'm sharing my flops with you. So, I am, it's almost like a patchwork quilt. So, anyway, I am going to gingerly put it into the pie plate. And we'll see if it goes in one piece or if I'm still quilting it together. Check this bad boy out, guys. Look at that. I had to patch all the little holes that I made. And I made a pie I don't know, before Christmas. It was perfect. The crust was perfect. Everything turned out great. And today, when I try to show you how I make a pie crust, it's a big flop. I was going to show you how I flute the edges, and I'll go ahead and try to explain that. I typically cut the crust when there's enough. And so basically it just touches the table all the way around. Then I fold it under, and then I pinch the dough like that. And that's how I flute my crust. Now, since this is going to be a cream pie, you have to bake it and let it cool before you put the filling in. So, I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever made a single crust pie that needs to be pre-baked, the sides will shrink down, you'll get a big bubble in the middle, it can be a mess. So, right now I'm poking holes in the bottom so let the air escape, the steam escape. I'll get the other one ready, and then I'll show you what I do to keep it from collapsing. Well, I was preheating my oven, and we just lost power out here, electricity. So we got to call it in and find out what's going on. But what I do then, after I've poked holes in the bottom, you can use a fork, whatever. Put some parchment paper in there. And I have these dry beans, and that's what I use them for. I just keep them up there in my jar display thing. And this will keep your sides from collapsing. I think there's some kind of a name for it, but I don't know. So I'm going to do that to both pie crusts. There's nothing I can do as far as baking it until the electricity comes on. Even though I have a gas stove and oven, it has an electronic whatever on the inside. So I can use my stove top, but I can't bake. Well, while I'm waiting for the electricity to come back on, when we were little kids, my mom used to take the leftover pie crust and sprinkle it with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar, and she called them pie crust cookies. And I had a brother that loved these pie crust cookies. So I'm certain that Mom made sure that he had his pie crust cookies and made a little bit extra. And of course the rest of us liked them too, but these were some of his favorites. So I just sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar on them, and there you go, pie crust cookies. So once the electricity comes back on, I'll get the oven preheated and we'll go from there. Okay guys, I just took this pie crust out of the oven, and it's still pretty warm. So I'm not going to take the beans out just yet. But I'm going to stop this video at just the pie crust, and then I'll make a pumpkin pie in one, and I'll make the in one video, and the other video I'll do the coconut cream. It's just going on too long. Now I left these little pie crust cookies in the oven a little long, but another thing that I like to do with these is just to see how my crust turned out. So I hope you can see how flaky it is, and it's very tender and flaky, and even though it's not pretty, it turned out very good, tastes good. So it'll be a later video showing the coconut cream pie and the pumpkin.